Oh, boundaries. A friend of mine, Nedra Tawwab, says that clear boundaries save relationships. And it wasn't until I read that in her book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, that I was like, oh, damn. Like, that is what really changed the game for me. Not only do clear boundaries save relationships with others, they save the relationship with yourself. And so for me, I have seen the women of my family, of my lineage, break their back and carry the world on their shoulders and nurse the babies and feed the home and not eat because everyone else is eating. And
my God, don't you just want to scream from a mountaintop? It's enough. Like, I just want to scream it, write it in the sky.
And we are conditioned and raised to abandon ourselves as an act of love. That is not a safe place to be.
No.
Boundaries are needed so that we can be in relationship with self and others in healthy ways. I'm a mother of 3, as I mentioned. I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I'm a daughter. I am all these things. I'm a teacher, blah, blah, blah. And if I am nothing to myself, I can't be anything to anyone else. Hence, why we need boundaries. No, I can't do that today. No, I'm sorry. I'm booked. Maybe let's look at next week. No, I don't want to. Like, it's okay for us to choose ourselves, and it's okay for us to not always be available. I don't want to. Here's what I learned. I was a constant yeser, even if I didn't want to do things. Okay. And then I would end up, 1, showing up not as my best self because I didn't want to be there, didn't want to do it. Or 2, canceling at the last minute, which is so inconsiderate and terrible. Like last minute, like 30 minutes before I'm supposed to do something, I'm like, I'm not doing that. And that's like, okay, that isn't great either. And so what I have learned is that if I am honest with myself about the capacity that I have, about what I want to do and what I don't want to do, I will save myself and my relationships, because nobody wants you to show up half-ass. They may think they do, but they don't. I know for me, if I ask a friend to do something, or if it's, a job or whatever the case may be, I want people to be intentional about the capacity that they have. If it's a no for you, let it be a no.
How do you say yes to having your name on the trailer and whatever it is that you're doing, even when your ego's like, oh, hell no, I'm not ready? Because that probably is the $1 zillion question.
The fact that saying yes is a choice, I think, is something important to pause on for a second. Because even now, where I'm at in my career, I can forget who I am. Like how we were talking earlier about, I was on the set of Friends as an extra and I just knew who I was. That was a really strong season of me knowing who I am. Even now, I can get in those seasons of doubt, those seasons of just no vision, just lack of vision, cloudiness, and really hard to say yes, to be a yes person, because you forget who you are, which is why I also love journaling, to go back and remind myself. And that's one part that I would love to quote in the Bible. In Revelations, it talks about they overcame the enemy by the word of their testimony. And to me, what that means and what that says is my words of my testimony, what I've already conquered, what I've already accomplished, what I've already dreamed for and achieved. When I say it, I'm conquering it again. When I say it and I hear myself, remind myself of who I am, remind myself of how strong I am, how creative I am, how set apart I am, how radiant I am, when I remind myself, because I'm in a season of forgetting right now. I'm forgetting my power. I'm forgetting my authority. I'm forgetting my awesomeness. I'm forgetting my uniqueness. I'm doubting. Then when I remind myself, I really am hearing it. I'm saying it and I'm hearing it. And it's going in my body. And it's this whole circle of just empowering myself. I overcame once, I can overcome again. I overcame that, I'm going to overcome this. And when you start reminding yourself who you are, then the yeses come. Then it's, okay, I'm ready, I'm going. And how you remind yourself, different for different people. For me, sometimes when I feel disconnected, when I feel not grounded, it's meditating, it's journaling. Let me choose silence. Let me choose a meditation. Let me go through my list of meditations and pick one really quick and just tune in. And those are ways that help me feel grounded, feel realigned, coming back into alignment of who I am, the truth. And from that place, it's easier to now start saying yes. You know what? I am going to audition for that part that I was too scared to audition for. I am going to learn my lines for that. You know what? I am actually going to go to the gym and work out. I am going to do that today. From that centeredness and groundedness, it's easier to start saying yes.
Here's the direct answer. It's 55 grand. Want it or not. Peace out. They don't do this. They don't get a mesh. They don't do this dance. They don't start calling in all the worries about how you think about them. Fuck no. They're like, I'm a dude. I'm going to be direct. This is the price. If you don't want it, move the fuck on. I'm over it. You can make your own fucking decision because you know what? Man up. You're going to man up. I'm not going to coddle you. Get on the fucking field. Give me 50 burpees and call it a day. Like, honestly, and then you guys are sitting here like, oh no, oh my God, why do you think we're in this situation? Why do you think we're in this world the way it is right now? All the women are fucking codependent and you have all the answers. You're literally sitting on all the answers. And while we're sitting here having enough courage to just go out there and make your first 100 grand a month, they're in DC. Like, they're sitting there right now being like, that's fucking funny. Anyway, want to do some lines of coke later? Like, and then people are like, oh, did you hear so-and-so candidate has like 16 baby mamas? Like, that's not new. They all do. That's not interesting. They're all having affairs. You know what? All of them, JFK, Clinton, that's just what they do. And they're still good at what they do to a certain extent, right? And we're all co-signing. It's fine. It's great because they don't do this. So why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Then you know what you're doing? Passing this disease to the next generation of women. Oh, you shouldn't charge that. Oh my God. I know that, and she makes a shit ton of money. I know you make a shit ton of money, but like, no, don't charge aspiring realtors anything. No,
you should
don't
feel
you
really
do that.
bad because you already have a lot of money.
Fuck
so
that.
Fuck that.
Seriously, these guys, and there's no there. They're teaching bro marketing. They don't know anything else. But what they know how to do is say, here's a price. They know how to own that shit. Then they say nothing else. Like the whole sentence is the price. There's no other words, and the person makes a decision, and then they move on. Next golf game, next big transaction, next deal just gets made. But just go ahead and take a look next time. You just look at the prime ministers and presidents of these almost 200 countries. We're not representing. We're just not there. There's no leadership. We're just not there. And then we sit in these rooms and we're like, I know what I'll do. I'll create like something for my kids after school, nonprofit. It's like, stop it. Go make money. Be direct. Please. Move into power. Move into leadership. Or you know what, let them vote for you. Go let them take away whatever they want. Let them do it. You're letting them right now. So you can't complain about it then. What the actual fuck are we doing? Seriously. We are reverting in time. We're rewinding clocks, you guys.
Yeah.
No. And it's because of this shit. It's because of, I can't charge, I can't. It's not yours to decide. Let her choose for herself and let her grow a pair so that she can now grow into her thing. That's what you should be ashamed of. Really, if you want to be ashamed of something, be ashamed of that. How many hours and days and weeks go by and you're just going to keep sitting on it He's not. While we sat in this room with this much strength, this much beauty, this much heart, you know how much money was just made by douchebags who are sitting around? What are they going to go do with it? Take away your right? Yeah. I have 3 daughters. The stakes are about as high as they can be, and you know that. Stop. It's gross that this much talent is being kept because, I charge this much money. It's like, no. Your grandmothers wish they had the luxury. Get on Instagram and say something like this, that they had this education. They didn't have it. They didn't have the right to do any of this. And you have it. They fucking sacrificed. They did so much that you could be sitting here. Oh my God, what will they think? What will they say? I can't handle it. I don't know. I don't have enough credibility. They'll just melt. Yeah. Maybe 92% of the people in your audience and the people you know will be like stuck. And then 8% are going to go, I'm in. Fucking go. They move. And then she moves the next person. She moves the next person.
Would you mind telling us whatever version, however abbreviated of a version you feel like telling of that story, however long, we're here for it. Just remind us of a little bit of what happened to you, how this all started.
I will do exactly that. Important thing to point out is one of the atypical features of my near-death experience was that I was amnesic. I had no memories of Eben Alexander's life, no language, no religious preconceptions, none of my scientific knowledge. I was an empty slate going in. Now, in the early weeks and months of my recovery, when my neuroscience knowledge was still not fully returned, I explained all that by saying, well, my doctors have told me how extensively damaged my neocortex was. And that was a part that was so shocking, with documented damage to the part of my brain that would be most responsible for any detailed conscious awareness was demonstrably offline. It was out of action. And that's one of the reasons why the scientific community takes its story so seriously. And I found out later that, no, there was much more to the story than that. But initially, amnesic for the life before. And so what I went through were basically 3 different phases of kind of the afterlife experience. The first was in a very primitive, coarse, unresponsive realm. I called it the earthworm's eye view. If I had just gone there and come back to this world, I would have had what's called a hellish NDE or a negative NDE. But no, like most of us, I was granted far more in that journey. And I was rescued from that earthworm eye view by a slowly spinning white light that came packaged with a perfect musical melody. And it was by remembering the notes of that melody that I could conjure up that light portal again and again through my journey, because I would tumble between these various levels over time, as I explained in the book, Proof of Heaven. But anyway, so the initial passage up from the earthworm eye view was into this brilliant, ultra-real gateway valley. Now, it had many Earth-like features, but it was much more like Plato's world of ideals. There was no sign of any death or decay. And I would say that's the realm where we reunite with higher souls, with our higher soul, with our soul group, loved ones who have left the physical plane already. That's where we plan next incarnations, go through life review. That's the most important part, because the life review, which has been talked about going back thousands of years, is a beautiful example of how we're sharing the dream of the one mind, and that our sense of here and now and sense of self blurs completely in those life reviews. We relive events in a very detailed fashion, but we do so often in a way where we're experiencing it from the emotional perspective of those around us who are influenced by our very thoughts and actions. That's why the life review in many ways is like the golden rule written into the fabric of the universe. Treat others as you would like to be treated, because the life review shows us very clearly that if we hurt others, we're hurting ourselves. Now, in that beautiful Gateway Valley, I was a speck of awareness on a butterfly wing, millions of other butterflies, thousands of souls dancing in the meadow below. And I said there were souls between lives. And of course, those who've read Proof of Heaven will realize one of the most beautiful aspects at that point was my guardian angel, my spiritual companion on the butterfly wing. It was actually identifying her 4 months after awakening from coma that it was the oh my God moment about the reality of the whole journey. But don't want to get ahead of myself. That's all there in Proof of Heaven. So it turns out that my first awareness of the divine was this soft summer breeze, or what I call divine wind, or God, breath of God that blew through. And even though what I witnessed and how I described it could stay fairly similar, that was my awareness of the power of the divinity, of that infinitely loving God force. And I can tell you, after coming back from this coma, I realized that trivial little discussions as to whether you want to call that force God, Allah, Brahman, Vishnu, Jehovah, Yahweh, Great Spirit, those are meaningless little human issues that have nothing to do with the grander power of the truth of that infinitely loving, healing force at the core of our very conscious awareness. And so what then happened was all the joy and festivities that I witnessed in that valley, all the joy and merriment and children playing and dogs jumping, every bit of that was being fueled because up above were these swooping orbs of pure angelic beings. I called them in my writings weeks later, they were angelic choirs. And these chants and anthems and hymns would just thunder through my awareness, this incredible sense of power and majesty and awe. And yet it was a spiritual home. It felt like I had finally come home. That's one of the most beautiful things to stress with people. And the other important thing to point out is you often hear these journeys are ineffable, indescribable by our earthly language. And that's because our modes of knowing in that realm are so much grander. You know, here, our physical body, our eyes, our ears, our brains, every bit of it conspires to limit our sensory flow to this tiny little trickle that's involved in our survival in the here and now as physical beings. And yet we have far greater wisdom and access to information about the universe beyond that. And that's why so much of the work that I've done since, and this is the focus of our book, Living in a Mindful Universe, it was co-written with my life partner, Karen Newell, is all about meditation, of helping people to get to these same levels by going within layers of mind. At any rate, back to my journey, those angelic choirs provided yet another portal, a light portal up into this brilliant, core realm. Now, the core, I witnessed as I ascended to these levels, all of four-dimensional space-time collapsing down. Then all of that spiritual layer of the Gateway Valley, as well as a different ordering of causality that I call deep time. Very important concept to explain that time flow in that realm is not identically matched to time flow in this realm. Anyway, we can talk more about that later if you wish. But bottom line is, in the core realm, all paradoxes, all of the dualities of this world, male, female, good, bad, dark, light, etc., everything's resolved into pure oneness in that level. And that's where I acknowledge the oneness of my very conscious awareness with that infinitely powerful and loving deity, that God force, and coming to see, as many near-death experiencers describe, that we're never separate from that. Now, I would cycle through these realms because they're in that sanctum sanctorum of the divine in the core, becoming one with God with a higher dimensional multiverse. There's a complex oversphere for teaching lessons. I would then tumble back down to that earthworm eye view. And it was by remembering the music, the notes, and these are notes that go far beyond any notes that could ever be put together in music in this world. But an idealized form of music. But by remembering all that, that enabled me to conjure up those portals again and again. But I was always told going into the core, you're not here to stay. You'll be going back. We'll teach you many things, not in words, because nothing in that realm was words. It was pure conceptual flow. The words were only applied later when I was writing it all up. But there came a time when they weren't kidding, and I could no longer conjure up through remembering the musical notes. I couldn't get out of that earthworm's eye view. To say I was sad at that point, that would be an understatement, but I also knew I could trust I would be taken care of. And that is, in fact, what unfolded. I remember some of the last things I saw before I came back to this world, circle of beings, thousands of them going off into the mists, heads bowed, murmuring, energy coming from them that was very reassuring, comforting. just like I'd felt in those higher spiritual realms. But this now is coming from these beings in this lowest realm. And I realized I was being led back to something. That's when I saw the 6 faces that emerged. And 5 of them were physically present in the ICU room the last 24 hours I was in coma. Therefore, they served as what are called veridical time anchors. And they showed that the coma journey happened between days 1 and 4 or 1 and 5 of my 7-day coma. At any rate, I came back to this world at the very end of the journey because the last of those faces I saw was of my son, Bond, 10 years old at the time. Now, of course, I didn't recognize him because my amnesia was still in full force, but that was the Sunday morning, day 7 of coma. The doctors had estimated I went from 10% to 2% chance of survival, but with no chance of recovery. So they recommended that Sunday morning stopping antibiotics and just letting me go. Bond had been protected from the worst news during most of that week, but he heard this. And when he did, he ran down the hallway, pulled open my eyelids, one eye looking over there, one eye over there, neither pupil responding. Those of you in medicine know how bad that is. At any rate, I did not see him with my eyes. I didn't hear him with my ears, but somewhere very deep on my spiritual journey, that message got through. He was pleading with me, Daddy, you're going to be okay. Daddy, you're going to be okay. I did not understand the words, but I fully sensed the connection. And in fact, to that point in the journey, I had thought this can all continue. It can cease. None of that matters. I was just enjoying the ride. But now I realized, oh my God, it absolutely matters. I had to come back for that other soul, no matter what it took. And it was the hardest thing of the entire journey. It was the first time I truly felt fear because now I knew it mattered. And I willed myself back to this world. And when I first woke up in that ICU room, I didn't even recognize my mother, my sisters, my sons at the bedside. All I knew was the journey I had just been on. But language, personal memories, all of that returned over days and weeks. By 2 months, everything was back. In fact, many indicators I came to realize showed my memories were more intact then than they had been before the coma. We talk about all of that in Living in a Mindful Universe, how memory is not stored in the brain, how the materialist model of neuroscience is going away because it's false. And there are much richer models that can explain all this. And that's what my journey in the 13 years since my coma has been all about, is working with scientists around the world to come up with a much more full explanation and understanding of how these kind of things work.
You were you were very vulnerable and brave and shared some of what you share overlaps in the book, where you went through a really painful experience with a baby and a pregnancy. And I was just blown away at how you found your way to this place of the infinite, this place of wholeness, even with sitting in and being available for all of the feelings, for pain. That was exquisite and mesmerizing.
Mm.
And I actually lost a baby to trisomy 18 2 years ago, and he was ill, and I had to go to the hospital with him alive and end that journey, which was really, really hard. And when I witnessed you in your experience more recently than this 2 years ago, I was just so healed and given so much by proxy of being aware of you and where you were able to swirl and show up. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Be happy to. And I just want to acknowledge you and all the mamas out there and the fathers out there who've experienced this type of loss, because it happens all the time and it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you a question. Were you still pregnant and he was alive, or was he? Yeah, that was my experience too. So
I've never met anybody else who had that experience. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't have a miscarriage. I had to do
Same.
Yeah. So,
Oh my God, I can't believe we're having this conversation.
Yeah, so big and it's so important, but it's also a testament to the work that we do on ourselves to get through it. So 3 months ago, I was 5.5 months pregnant. I was supposed to be delivering in a few weeks, actually. And my 20-week scan, the baby's alive, but he's 2 weeks behind in growth. And thank you so much for helping me just feel into the grief a little bit, because I've been really pushing past it. Okay, so thank you. This is really helpful for me because I've been really just moving on, and I know that the grief comes in waves, and I want to honor you for the grief that you might be experiencing right now too. But yeah, he was, I spent a year doing IVF to get this one healthy embryo, and I kept saying, all you need is one. When we were at the doctor's office, they were really getting nervous, and we were like, what the fuck is going on? And they're like, do you have any embryos saved? And we're like, no. My husband said under his breath, all you need is one. Anyway, I'm gonna get to the point. This is really valuable, though. I just want to really acknowledge you for holding the space for me to just feel, because even though it's happening publicly, it's necessary, because and I'll explain a little bit about my grace and grieving, and why this is a moment that's very valuable for me. But so the baby was alive in my body at 5.5 weeks, and I had to go into the hospital. I had to live with him, knowing he was going to be taken out of me, and I had to go to the hospital, and I had to let him go. His name was Owen, and I believe he came into my body at that time in that way to give me a lot of grace, to give me a lot of opportunity to learn, and an opportunity to get closer to my husband, an opportunity to really give my 3-year-old my all, and to just really never sweat the small stuff ever again. And so what I noticed was all the decades of personal growth and spiritual work just hold me like a pillow of faith when this happened. And I was able to even witness what I'm noticing right now was this part of me, a protector part of me that was dissociated. It's a very important part that shows up in times of crisis, and I think it's necessary at times. And I was able to notice, okay, dissociated part is just up, and she's doing her job right now, which is to numb you out and then titrate into the grief, and then go back to numbing and then into the grief. And that's what we're doing even here right now, is being able to touch into the feeling that I'm so grateful. This isn't necessarily the wrong word, but that you activated in me in a really profound way. And I'm deeply grateful for that, because I've been very removed. And so grief is just like this. It's going to come in moments like this, public, for a podcast. And then the work is to be fully present in that moment with that grief. And then when you notice that part of you that wants to just be like, okay, I'm going to check out now, or it's time to get back to work or whatever, and just say thank you for helping me not live in this grief, not live in this victim mentality. And so I think that the healing process and to go through grief with grace means that you have the bravery to titrate into it and touch into it, and then come out, and then go in, and then come out. And that's actually a lot of what the trauma healing process is. It's not rip off the Band-Aid and just feel it all at once. It's just notice what's up, and then come back to safety, and then go back in and come back. And it's slow, and it's going to come in random moments. And I'm so grateful that this was one of them.
You are so easy to love, and you're so beautiful, like inside and outside. Like when Hashem made you, he just put so much extra glitter and magic in you, and you know that. And for you to be able to be really with this in this moment, like for everyone who's listening and everyone who has you on a pedestal, which it's appropriate on some level, you're pretty amazing. But this is your legacy. Like, this really shows the way in which you are so available to really live this fully spiritual existence. And I just want to add this because you just gave such a beautiful opening. I just wanted to add this, that you and I shared such a similar, fact pattern. That's the circumstance that I lived, that I went to Cedar Sinai with a baby that was alive in me, and it was around the same time, the 20th week. And it was so painful for me, Gabby. And I had gone through 11 rounds of fertility treatment, and this was like, it was similar. And I got you. I know exactly. Yeah, you got me. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a healer in Jerusalem. And I was like, this is insane that I'm like spending this next week with this being. And it's like the most painful. Like, I wish that God would just like, let God do it. Like, why am I even in Anyway, she said a few things to me. I feel compelled to share them with you because maybe this will offer you some light.
Yeah, please.
So she said, Cathy, it's our belief in Jewish tradition that we see the mission before we sign up for the assignment to come into this world. And she said his soul looked into the future and signed, volunteered for the mission, knowing that this would be the tikkun, the whatever the soul needed, like this was it. And then she said, can I just say to you, how cool is it that his entire experience of reality was Cathy? Like, all he knew about the world was your vibration. And she goes, what a gift. Like that was his full experience of reality. It's just you, your way of looking at the world, the way you breathe, the way you dance, the way you see it. She goes, what a high level. And then I said to her, this is so hard for me to do this. And she said, Kath, you know Torah, right? She's like, what's the hardest test? The hardest test is Abraham going up to the mountain with Isaac. And she said, and what do we learn? That they went together, that he walked with him. And she said, you're not going alone. She goes, next week when you go to that surgery, you're going together. Like, together you walk there. Together you go there, which was just so amazing. And when I came out of surgery, I was crying, and I turned to the doctor who was there as I was waking up. And I said to her, I'm crying. Like, why am I crying? I'm not in any pain. And she said, Cathy, I've done so many different kinds of surgeries. She said, I only saw that a couple times, and it's only been with mothers. And she said, as soon as we took him, you started to cry in the OR. You knew. Yeah. And you've been crying since then, and you're not in any pain. And that next night was Shabbat. And when we were singing Shalom Aleichem, the last verse is Tzetzem L'Shalom, where you like tell the angels like they can go. And the soul hangs out for a few days. And I said to the kids, he's here now. So just like thank him for being here, and let's just send him back with like so much love. And I felt similar to you, that the amount of love that came, the roses, the flowers. My house was like a floral shop.
It was a floral shop. Yep.
And I felt that feeling of like, maybe he came to let me experience being carried on wings of so much love, so many people, so unconditionally. So it's amazing how we can choose what we make meaning of. And I don't know if that helped you, but
oh God, I can't stop crying. That was the most, I want you to send that to me if you don't mind. It was the most beautiful thing. And it's so soothing to me to just remember and to honor that experience, because if you don't show up for it in these moments, it's going to come back to you in different moments that you don't want it to, right?
Yeah.
It's going to show up.
And the thing is with grief and with any kind of pain, it's like my mindfulness teacher used to say that feelings are like visitors, like they're just going to keep knocking until we let them in. And Janine Roth, like I love her work where she talks about, just feeling the feeling itself. There's a beauty in that. Like grief, when you and I were just crying, what was that? That was love come alive. Like that's what we were experiencing, the love, right? So it's like to deny yourself, to tell yourself you can't handle it. Anyway, back to you. This is about you. This is about your work. This is about your book.
But everything that we just shared and everything that you just shared is about this book.
Yeah.
Is that it's the grief of our own loss as innocent children. It's the grief that of the parts of ourselves that departed when we were so young. And it's really giving ourselves the voice to honor, care for, love, and respect the inner children within ourselves, within our own system, so that we can then move through difficult adult moments like this with faith and grace. And I believe that the way that you and I have been able to be here right now and resiliently speak of these topics, even with the tears are part of the resilience, is because of the personal growth work that we've done in our life. And so that doesn't mean when you practice spiritual principles and you commit to therapeutic processes and you heal your wounds from the past, it doesn't mean that shit doesn't hit the fan. But what it means is that you can see it through the lens of a spiritual perspective, just like what was it a rabbi that spoke with you or your teacher?
About the feelings knocking on the door?
Yes. No. Particularly about the baby having this experience.
Yeah, rabbi. Yeah.
Like that to me is just extraordinary, and I echo those beliefs that our souls make a commitment in this lifetime to come in and to experience whatever we need to experience so that we can really have the spiritual assignment that we need. And sometimes those souls come in the form of 5 months to just be in the presence of our energy or to teach us a profound lesson. But sometimes it's not about us. It's that soul needed. We needed to be a conduit through which that soul came through to have that experience in our body.
Yeah.
And that knowing of safety and security and love. And that's enough. That's what they needed. And we got to take one for the team sometimes.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about where you were and then what happened and what you're doing now?
Well, when I first came to Maine to do this, I was working as an accountant with a law firm. I had been there for 16 years or 15 years at the time. My daughter had a little baby. She lives with me. I was babysitting. She worked at night. So I was working with COVID, working from home, watching him, getting on the calls with May to do this. And Cathy, I think all the time, and everybody, I had a hot seat with Cathy where I about lost my mind. And I went back and looked at the recording and I was like, oh, my mind was just blown. And since then, so much has changed. That person 2 years ago wouldn't even recognize me today. So I quit my job last May. I quit my job, which I thought I never could do. And I saw in the comments, somebody said they're worried about their age. I'm 65 freaking years old. I'm rocking it, okay? Whoever's worried about age, forget it. Anyway, I quit my job. Well, before that, right when I was made to do this, also, I got certified as a life coach with the Life Coach School. So I was doing the Life Coach School certification. I was in therapy. You didn't even know that after the hot seat. I went into therapy. I was watching my grandson. He would be sitting with me while I was on my calls, and I was working from home. So all the people that tell me they don't have time, okay. And so I got certified and I just started coaching people for free. I started a money book club. I just coach people for free. And now some of those same people are my clients. And I am shocked at what my life looks like. It's like I live in the same house. Yeah, I look the same, whatever. But the inside is so different. And Cathy, I tell people all the time, you gave me permission to do it quick and messy. And literally, that is what freed me. Just having someone give me that permission, I can't even tell you the freedom it gave me because I was such a perfectionist. So I have something exciting to tell you. The 3 weeks in January, so the second, third, and the past week, I made $50,000. I got my W-2, and on my corporate job where I made 6 figures, between January and May when I quit last year, I made 41,000. And I made 50,000 really in about 10 days. This is the other thing, I didn't launch a thing. How crazy is that, right? I was sick in November and December. I had bronchitis, I had a sinus infection. I was having all the things. So I didn't hardly make any money. And I still knew that it was coming. I just held on to my belief that it was coming. I didn't worry about getting a job. And for all of you, I'm single, I'm divorced, I have no husband, no other income here. It's just me. So all the people that think they can't quit their job because there's nobody, no other income, it's just me and God, we doing the work. And I did a free 1-week masterclass, kind of like you do your challenges. Cathy, no notes, no nothing, me and the whiteboard, right? People were signing up. And then I gave my current clients the opportunity to re-sign at my lower price. I want everybody to know I started out at $3K for 6 months. Then I went to $5K for 6 months. And now I charge $10K for 6 months. And I help women make money without a freaking job, mostly through becoming coaches. So either entry-level coaches or women that want to be coaches, you do not need a certification. I will hold your hand and show you the way. You do not need a certification. I made 50,000 without launching. No sales page. This is the other thing I tell people. You don't need a freaking website. You don't need a freaking LLC. You don't need a sales page. You need nothing but yourself. Nothing but yourself. I'm in the middle of writing a business book called Newpreneur. I made that up. I work with new entrepreneurs. I'm relaunching my podcast, the Newpreneur Podcast. What? You know what? I said one day, I feel like I'm like living the dream, and it has nothing to do with money.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, nobody could give that to me. A paycheck couldn't give that to me. And the other piece I want people to know, which I had told you in that hot seat, is my daughter was born 3 months early, 2 pounds, 1 ounce. I had a brain tumor. In fact, I had 3 major surgeries in 1 year, a brain tumor, back surgery, and my thyroid removed. And then about 9 months later, I found out my ex-husband, we were together 24 years, found out he had a girlfriend and a whole secret life. So I've started my life over again at around 50. So it's just a testament to what's possible. And in between, my youngest brother died of brain cancer. My mom died, my dad died. My grandson has a disability. He's 2 years old and was born, one of his arms is shorter than the other, it's not fully formed. And we are happy up in this house, and it has nothing to do with money. My grandson is the happiest little person you can imagine. Nothing to do with money. This is bigger than money. The money is amazing, yes, but it has nothing to do with money. And Cathy, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. If you had not said, do it messy, you can't even imagine how many times I've said that to people. I'm just going to do it messy. People have criticized me when I make a spelling mistake. Oh, you shouldn't put your business out there. Don't tell people how much money you make. I mean, I've heard it all. Even my best friend doesn't talk to me anymore. And I've been friends with her since I was 19. But you know what? How many people's lives am I affecting by just showing up and telling my story?
So when somebody says like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't afford it. How do you help people to see what's actually here and possible?
Like, one of the first things I ask them is if you didn't have health insurance or your health insurance didn't cover certain procedures and your child needed surgery,
Hey.
where would you get the money? Well, that's where you're going to get the money to help yourself, because you need to help yourself first before you can help your children, your family. That's where you get the money. You bet on you. I didn't have the money. I paid $18,000 for my life coach certification. I didn't have it sitting around. You know what I did? I took it out my 401k. I do all the things they said don't do. Then I refinanced my house and took some equity out my house. Okay. That's when somebody really wants to change their life. And most of the time when people say they don't have it, what that means is I don't plan on spending it on that. It's not that they don't have it. Most people can come up with it. They can come up with it. They just hadn't planned on spend. Ask them, did they go on a vacation? Ask them how they bought a new car. Ask them how they paid for their kids to go to college. When you get sick enough of yourself and the situation you find yourself in and say no to your dreams, you will figure it out. Because we hustle when we're in pain. We hustle when we lose a job. We hustle, like I said, to send our kids to college. We hustle when something goes wrong. But how can you hustle when everything on the surface is okay, but your dreams are like bubbling underneath and ready to come up? How do you hustle for yourself? That's what I ask people. How do you hustle for yourself? How do you go all in on you? It's okay to be afraid. I'm afraid every time I invest in myself. I do it anyway, because whatever we're afraid of is exactly where we should be going.
What are you hoping that we will start to understand about death that informs, like you said, our life and the choices that we might want to be making?
So this is one of my favorite subjects. So here we go. Everything that has impacted my life and my view on death comes from the Baha'i teachings. Baha'u'llah says, I've made death a messenger of joy for thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? And that was the basis, that was the foundation for my last days. How can death be joyful? And the deeper I go into that, when I go into the Baha'i writings, when I go into what is talked about, somebody once asked Abdul Baha, which translates to the servant. He was the son of Baha'u'llah. He's who Baha'is look to as kind of the perfect example in his life. Somebody once asked him, how does one prepare for death? And he smiled, a big joyful smile. He says, the way that one would prepare for any journey. With excitement, with longing. How often, like when you're going on a trip, a vacation, you are thinking about it all the time. In many ways, it kind of makes you less present, and you're like, oh, I need to pack my bags. And
sure,
let's say you're going to Hawaii. It's like, oh, God, I cannot wait to just get on that beach. There's a longing because you know where you're going is different and a little bit better than where you are now. That's why you're having a vacation. It's an experience. And what Baha'u'llah teaches is that where we are going, where death takes us, is a new life that is far more incredible and beautiful than we could ever imagine here. And the way he helps us understand that is he gives us the analogy of the womb. In the womb, we are technically alive. And this is not a case, this is not diving into being pro-choice or pro-life. This is like the Baha'is believe that the soul begins at conception. So you're alive in the womb, and you're having an experience. You're having an experience, and you are developing things that you have no control over, developing your eyes and your ears, your heart's beating, you're developing your skin, your lungs, but you have no use for them in the womb world. You're in a floating
Right.
matrix, if you will. And yet you're getting everything you need from outside sources. You have no free will. You can't decide to do anything. You're just there. And all of the things you're developing, you're going to need for a place that you've never been, that you don't even know you're going. The interesting thing is that place exists 2 inches away. It's 2 inches away from where you are right now when you're in the womb world, yet you have no concept or frame of reference to what it is. And if you were to tell a baby that outside their world, just 2 inches away, is the most beautiful place you've ever imagined. There are mountains and there's a sky and there's a sun and there's heat and cold, and you're going to need your skin and all your nerves to be able to feel the warmth. There's water and you're going to be able to drink it. There's air that you can breathe. That's why you need your lungs, and all of the light and the colors so you can see. That's why you need your eyes, and the smells for your nose. That's why you're developing your nose, and the taste. Oh my God, the taste. There's going to be food that you can eat, and you're going to have these. You're going to have a tongue that's going to help you taste all of those things. You're going to have legs so you can walk. If you were to tell this little baby in the womb that all of this existed, the baby would say, "What are you talking about? You're crazy. I have everything that I need." And yet, just outside the womb, 2 inches away, is this world that's existing. And one day, the baby dies of the womb. And it's uncomfortable. It's not easy. And is born, goes through a tunnel of light, right? And is born into this world. And suddenly it needs everything that it was developing. There's a purpose for it. There's a use for all of these things. And the best part is that whole time the baby was in the womb, it was being loved by somebody. Somebody was nourishing it because it didn't have free will. Somebody was caring for it. Somebody was hopeful for it, ideally, getting ready for it to come. And that's who greeted the baby upon its birth. It was greeted with love. Then we come into this world, and we know God said, okay, one day this world's going to end, but I'm going to give you a clue. The things you're here to develop are no longer material. They're no longer physical. It's now the spiritual parts of you, your spiritual eyes, your spiritual ears, your spiritual sense of smell, your spiritual legs. What are those things? They're virtues: honesty, kindness, sincerity, steadfastness, love. All of these things are the spiritual arms and legs that we will need where we're going. And the best part is that all of the people that have left us, like my friends from my last days, family members, they are already there, just like we were, waiting for us, loving, praying for us. Because when we go through that tunnel, when we go to wherever we're going next and we have no use for our physical bodies, they're the ones that are there welcoming us, just like they were here welcoming us the first time. Which is why when my daughter was born, I had a 360 experience, and I realized, oh my God, this is the circle. For 9 months, I prayed for her. I loved her. I talked to her, right? I joked with her. I was waiting for her. And as she came into this world, my voice was the first voice she heard, and it was a prayer for her life. And I held her and I touched her and I put her on Mama's body. And I'm going to get to do that again, just differently. Because I'm going to get there before her, and I'll be waiting for her in the exact same way, loving her and praying for her and welcoming her into the world just like I did the first time. And that, when you think about life that way, that's what Abdu'l-Baha says, to look forward to it. So I have to pack my bag. I have to pack my bags while I'm alive. And what do I want to put in my bag? I want to put my virtues, because I know where I'm going. I don't want to go to Utah and go skiing, but only have summer clothes. I want to put all the stuff I need in the bag so that I'm prepared. And that's what this life's about. Virtues, kindness, love, sincerity. That's what I'm putting in my bag. That's what I'm working on, because that's what I'm going to need where I'm going next.
It's so beautiful. You know, if you have a soul and ears, there's no way to not cry listening to that. It's absolutely stunning. And the truth makes you cry because it just hits you. And there's the most familiar place just goes, I know this is true.
So Deepak loves Rupert. This is Rupert Spira. This is a poem actually called A Meditation on I Am. So this is exactly what you're talking about.
Get my hands on it.
So he loves Rupert. I would recommend there's a book called Being Aware of Being Aware, which is my favorite of Rupert's books. But it's about exactly what you're talking about. But it's interesting. Yeah. I find there's value in, and I think Deepak and Rupert, I don't know, might agree with me. There's just different altitudes to our life. Like it's one life, it's one thing, but we can fly at different altitudes. And I find there's value for me to separate them, meaning we're talking about, there's this great, I'm paraphrasing it, but there's a Rumi poem where it's like, you're in an apple orchard, just eat some apples. Don't waste the day wondering who planted the trees or whatever. Meaning there's a time to just go like, I'm just talking to you. I know we're all one, but isn't it fun to play this game? And why did the oneness split if it didn't want to play this game? It wanted to do this. Yeah. My daughter's name is Leela. Leela means the dance or the play of the universe. So let's play, let's dance. You know what I mean? It doesn't all have to be, but it's not real or nothing's really happening or whatever. So what we're talking about is like finding fulfillment or kind of filling out the suit of being a comedian and how that felt right to me. My favorite altitude to fly at is what you're talking about, which is what Deepak and Rupert Spira love to talk about, which is like, I haven't always been called Pete, meaning when I was a baby, I didn't know I was Pete, but I was, I existed. I haven't always lived in Boston, and I live in Los Angeles now. You know what I mean? So, but I can't say I'm a Los Angelino because I haven't always. So what Rupert would say is, so that means those things aren't essential to me. My name, where I'm from, what I do, those things aren't essential to us. So the process of self-inquiry, when you close your eyes and you say, who or what is aware of my experience? I was just doing it last night. I do it as I fall asleep often, where I'm just sort of like, there's no limit. When you close your eyes, you can do it right now. There's no boundary. There's no boundary to this awareness.
Yeah, it's infinite.
Like Rupert would say, can you find a boundary on the other side of which this awareness is not? And of course you can't. It's one of the reasons why the universe feels so sort of familiar. We're floating in this infinite blackness, but we are infinite blackness. You know what I mean? Like it's like an as above, so below sort of thing. Totally. And we're sort of like, okay, but you realize that you are this, you're the whole thing. So what I love about Rupert is he says that awareness, that knowing is made of peace and is made of happiness because it's desireless. And that's your real self. So I'll tell you, even though I've had my tea and I'm very happy to be talking with you right now, I think my daughter woke up at like 6 this morning and my wife got up with her and I got to sleep because I have a show tonight and I needed the extra rest or whatever, but I couldn't fall back asleep. And I was just having that anxiety. Like you're just having like sort of like an unfounded, reasonless anxiety. So what I want to say, when you remember that who you are is peace, I know that. And yet I still have these like bouts, like it'll wash over me just like dread or panic. And that's when it's helpful to go, who or what is noticing this panic right now? Totally. And with practice, it gets easier to sink into that. And that's what being aware of being aware is about.
I then also am aware that I have practiced this dance of feeling into joy and real gladness. And then my nervous system starts to feel scared. Exactly. So when people are listening right now, that's probably one of the payoffs in going into drama and creating drama, is because it's scary to unwind that fight or flight response. And so what have you learned about it? Because clearly you're sustaining this experience of being in your being. And that takes a lot of courage.
Okay. Okay, let me give you an analogy, Cathy, which illustrates the situation that you've described very well. This joy that we long for, but we also fear it.
Right.
This irony of the one thing we want above all else is the one thing we fear above all else. Why is this? Consider the moth and the flame. The moth sees a candle at a distance in the open window, and the candlelight is the only thing the moth wants. It's attracted to the light. So it flies towards the candle. As long as it's flying towards the candle is what it wants above all else. It goes in a straight line for the candle until it gets about 3 inches away. And then suddenly it realizes, in order to have the candle, I must die. Because the moment it touches what it wants, it dies. Well, the moth is the ego, and the candle is happiness, joy. The candle of joy is the one thing the ego wants above all else. But the moment the ego touches that joy, it dies. Why? Because joy is the loss of the sense of separation. It is the loss of the sense of being a needy, vulnerable, insufficient fragment. So the ego cannot have the joy it seeks. It must die into the joy it seeks. So the ego comes close to the joy. It's about to lose itself in it, and then it thinks, oh no, I'll die. I'll no longer be myself. And it pulls back again. And that's the dance that the ego rehearses over and over and over again.
To be beautiful and strong at the same time is not always something women know that they have the option to do, because I think we're raised to be people pleasers on some level. And I love that you're all of the things and you're not holding back. So how are you allowing yourself not to hold back?
Well, I appreciate that. And I can remember, it really just takes me back to when I was 21 and made this decision to change my life with my food. And I think what it was is that I felt exactly what you said. I didn't have self-worth. My job was to please, and I had very little sense of self. But what I had going for me was youth and sort of rebellious stupidity, where I didn't know the consequences of my actions. And I also didn't care because I was young. So that combination is interesting, because while I was a people pleaser and didn't have a strong sense of self and worth, what I had was a passion for animals. Like, that's what got me. So if you had said to me, Alicia, it would be a really good idea for you to eat differently, it'll make you feel better and look better, I would have been like, fuck you. Do you know what I mean? Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell, like, that I couldn't do, because that would be for me, right? Because I didn't have the worth yet. What hit me was the animals. So the animals, I loved animals. And when I had the awareness, like, if everyone could just think that every time you eat any kind of meat, you're eating your dog or your cat, I think it might change things, because you really are. Just like when you eat fish, you're eating a whale, a dolphin, a turtle, all of these endangered species who are being wrapped up in the nets, and they're just throwing it overboard. So, sorry, fun stuff. But the point is that the message that came clear to me, what you're talking about, that's that empowerment.
Yeah.
When I decided to make this change for the animals, not for me, it was like, I remember going, I may not be healthy anymore, because I didn't know about health yet. I may not enjoy food ever again. Oh my God, this is going to be awful. But I will stand with the animals. This was a commitment for them. That kind of commitment changed my whole worth. Suddenly, I was walking around taller. I didn't have this pressure in me anymore. I felt lighter. I felt empowered. I felt empowered as a woman. Like, I can say no to something. I can say this is not okay, and I'm going to do something about it. This was huge for me, for my female self-worth. It was huge. It started to lead. I take everything that I did with the animals as the best karma that ever happened to me, because it changed my whole life. Not only did I ditch my asthma inhaler and stop allergy shots and, lose a ton of weight and lost all my acne and, got really thick, strong nails and great hair, all that stuff, whatever, all my medical stuff went away. But I became empowered as a person and led on a journey that allowed me to listen to my heart. Once I was empowered enough to know, oh, I can say no to something. It took me a long time to be able to say no to other to people. That got hard. That was a harder step.
Of course.
But I was on the journey now. Now I had a taste of, well, this is wrong. And if this is wrong and I'm saying no to it, then perhaps I can say no to things that are wrong to me. And perhaps I can listen to what my body needs and what my heart needs too. It took a long time, but it was definitely the thing that busted the door open and allowed me access to my heart and my self-worth and my truth.
What do you say to people? Because that is like a magical power to realize that like God is with you, right? You got this. Nobody else knows better than you. But so often people are waiting for someone to come along. So what would you say to them?
I think, so I've actually thought about this a lot. And I think about, this is going to be super random and may not make sense, but I think you can work on your like overall magnetism. Like when you see, let me think of somebody. Think about like Willie Nelson, for example. Whether consciously or subconsciously, what he is, he's like, if he was a video game character, like overall magnetism score would be incredibly high. Like you're just like, I have to know more about this person, right. And you're such a thing. So I feel like pretend like creative endeavors or trying to do something creative is like you're floating in just like outer space and you're an asteroid, right? You can work on your magnetism score. You can write better and better songs. You can present yourself better. You can, whatever that is. And so you can't really control if you're gonna, if your magnetism is going to just like pull a bunch of small things toward yourself, or if your magnetism is going to like pull you towards a giant asteroid. But you can, let's say your magnetism score right now, it's like, I'm like a 6 out of 10. It's like, if you can be a 10 out of 10, there's no way this doesn't work a little bit. Worst case scenario would be like me, which is like, my magnetism is pretty high, but I've never flown by an asteroid that was like, this is the sickest asteroid ever. It's like perfect timing at, Columbia Records, and my magnetism just like popped me into the asteroid where it's like, wow, you're a part of this now because your magnetism is so high. I haven't like flown close enough to anything like that at the right time, but just hanging in free space because my magnetism score is high, I'm just like pulling space dust towards me the whole time. And so like that can work, or you can kind of like be at the right place at the right time. And if you're magnetic enough, you get pulled towards something else that's bigger and it helps you. So to me, I would say anybody that's like, how do I do that? I would be like, use all of your energy to become the most magnetic space thing you can. And that is the most you songs and the most you branding and like improving it. So anytime you're in front of somebody, if it's on a TV show or opening for someone or at an open mic or whatever, if your magnetism score is 10 out of 10, anything you come in contact with, people are going to be like, whoa, dang. And you might not get lucky. You might not have Clive Davis be at the open mic. And you can't do anything about that. But if your magnetism is 9 or 10 out of 10, everybody at that open mic is going to be like, have you heard of this person? This is crazy. So that to me is the only thing you can control, because you can't control whether or not fill in the blank music tycoon is like, you're my favorite thing ever. But you can control how magnetic you are. And then every opportunity you get, like if it was a space race, the person who's like 9 out of 10 on magnetism floating through space is just going to draw more things to themselves than 7 out of 10 every time. It's a self-perpetuating thing.
I'm curious if you could talk about having experiences like that when you're in the flow, you're in the zone like that. And what do you think that is? How would you explain that?
Well, I have a theory. I don't know if it's real or not, but it's everybody has like an aura and an energy, and it's not just a woo-woo term. It's like literally a measure of course that they can see the waves, and they can, when they measure them. And I think that artists that have an amazing ability to connect, or those people that have that it factor that's just indescribable. No one knows what to call it. I really think that those artists know how to channel their actual like love and energy and those emotions that create those waves, because literally gratitude and love have a different amplitude than nervousness. And, you know, and this is all science. But I think that that energy and being able to like really focus in on it and harness it and then project it, I think that is what makes those magnetic it factor performers. And it's something that I've in the last few years really started to work on. And I've started to like meditate before shows to try to imagine myself literally sending love into the audience as if my aura is like exploding. And I wanted to go to the very back of the room, and more so than focusing on, I hope that I'm enough and I hope that like they like me. Because that's how I used to go on stage. I used to step on in a state of like, I hope they like me and I hope I'm enough. I hope I play well and they think I'm good enough. But that's almost setting yourself up for failure if you step into a party like that, or a room or a date or whatever it is. Like, I hope they like me. When you step on in a state of like, I get to give a gift and I get to share with this room, with this audience, with this group of friends, like who I am, and I'm going to show up for them rather than hope that they like me, it changes everything. And, you know, and so like I meditate and visualize for shows. I do breath work now to try to strengthen my like magnetism and the ability to send out the love. And that's the focus that I now step on stage with, is literally, I want them to feel my love. The music will happen. I've practiced countless hours. I'm prepared. Now I just need to send them love.
Having a number to hit will have empty, results. To your point of exactly what you said, right? It's like you get the accolades, you get the award, and the thing that you think you're going to feel, I don't know anyone who has actually felt the thing they think they're going to feel. So now it has to be more than just a number, more than just an award. So we actually sold Quest in 2 portions. And the first portion that we sold Quest in was a small amount, but that was really the pivot that changed our lives. That literally, I mean, one day you go from, you've got a Ford Focus with a hole in the exhaust and the steering wheel is shaking when you go over 60 miles an hour, to all of a sudden now you can go buy a freaking Ferrari, right? Like that's actually like that.
Crazy.
So it's crazy. Now, let me tell you, me and my husband over time, as we built Quest, for me and him, it was about the mission. Like it was originally like, how do I save my house? And then it became, oh my God, I can't believe it. What am I made of? This is so exciting. I can prove to myself every day that I can improve myself. So that became my North Star. And then over time, as I faced more obstacles, it was the mission. So I had women that were writing in that basically, this one woman said she was 40 pounds anorexic and on her deathbed in hospital.
So sad. Oh my gosh.
And she wrote in saying that she thanked us for Quest bars because we finally made her okay with calories again. There was another woman that wrote in saying she had a type 1 diabetic son. And for years, she had to snatch and take cupcakes and things out of his hands whenever he was at parties. And she said that he can actually eat Quest bars now and his insulin level doesn't spike. And so she said, thank you for making me feel like a better mother. How emotional can you get over that? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And my motivation and my mission turned into a mission based, which was I get to help anorexic women. I grew up with my mum borderline anorexic and then catapulted the opposite direction into severe obesity. And so when it comes to health, nutrition, and weight, you better believe I will show up every day for that. So literally, you think I'm joking. There was one day where we were selling a small portion of the company and you hear rumors, but until the actual money hits your account, anything can happen. So we're sitting there for months and then we hear rumors that one day, all of a sudden, today's the day. So we're working out in the garage, in our little cheapskate little garage workout system that we had. And my husband in between reps is refreshing his phone, right? And so we're sitting there, refresh. Did we get it? No. Refresh. Did we get it? No. Refresh. Oh my God, it's hit our account. Life changing, right? We took a couple of photos, we took a couple of selfies, and what did we do? We got changed and went to work. We didn't tell a soul. I told my mum and dad, but we didn't tell anyone in the company. Why? Because we showed up every day for the mission and not for the money.
everyone on earth has two fears. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of pain, fear of the unknown. But below all those fears is the fear that we're not enough. And the deeper fear is if we're not enough, we won't be loved. The way out of it is stop focusing on you. It's not to know more of who you are. You're already so much. You know how you're going to discover who you are? Serve others. Step out of yourself, because as long as you're in this mind, the mind plays games. The heart and soul knows better. The heart and soul knows what's real. So to me, the solution, it's like public speaking. I hear people all the time say, oh gosh, how do you do that? Aren't you afraid? Well, no, I've been at it for, a few decades. So no, I'm not afraid, but I wasn't even in the beginning because of one thing. And I tell this to people all the time who are having difficulty. I've never been focused on me. When I get up there, I go up there to serve. The reason the 12 hours go by is I'm seeing and feeling everybody and I'm feeling what's needed. I'm out there. I'm not in here. If I was in here evaluating how am I doing, my ego would show up. It'd be about me. But because I care so much and I can feel everybody and they can feel I'm with them. It's like if someone's talking to you and then they're in their head trying to think about stuff, you lose the connection. But I'm out here. And when you're out here, there's nothing to fear. And then when you can do something, it's meaningful. And there's always somebody worse off than you are. That's why I started feeding people even when we're in trouble. You can rewire yourself for anything. You can wire yourself to be angry or sad or loving or excited. But you don't have to, if you are feeling like an imposter, you need to do something to get better and grow and expand. So you're not an imposter. But also along the way, you got to be less focused on you and focused on serving. Then you're not an imposter if you get the result for another human being. And that result could be bringing joy or happiness or helping to heal. There's so many things we can do. You don't have to have all the skills to even do it. But human beings, when they're in their head, they're dead. So the way out of your head is through good service. It's through acts of service. It's like, I think love is an act, right? Don't tell me how loving you are. If you're really loving, do something, right? And if you do something, I'm not here. And then the other thing that happens is like you start to see the good you're doing because you're not doing it to get something. But after a while, it accumulates back. It's like you can't help and love on so many people without it coming back to you tenfold. It doesn't always come back from the person you help. Sometimes it hits you in the back of the head from somebody you don't even know. But this imposter syndrome is the biggest joke on the planet. All it is being selfish, focusing on yourself, beating yourself up, talking about what you're not, telling other people how you feel. It just means you lack courage. And when I say lack courage, it means you're just not using it. Everybody's afraid. Here's what I can tell you. I've worked with kings and queens. I've worked with every living president and 3 past presidents that are no longer with us. I've worked with the greatest athletes. I've worked with the winners of Academy Awards and Grammys and everything you can imagine, billionaires. I've never met anybody who doesn't have a place where they don't feel like they're not enough. It's just, you may not be feeling it right now, but something can trigger. I'm not old enough. I'm too young. I'm not rich enough. I'm not funny enough. I'm not sexy enough. I'm not whatever. The way out of that is stop focusing on you and focus on serving. You don't feel that way when you're really serving. You only feel that if you're serving and thinking about how you're doing, then you're still in you. But if you're out here, the game's over. And when you do that enough, it changes your identity. And there's a point where you can't deny that you are who you are. You're not perfect, but you're a good human being. And there's a lot to be proud of in yourself. And so go to work. Stop talking about this crap. Stop telling everybody about your imposter syndrome. Stop making excuses. Go immerse yourself in good things, good books, good audio. Because if you don't feed your mind every day, weeds grow automatically. You don't have to work on weeds. My teacher, Jim Rohn, used to say that. So you got to plant the seed. Every day you got to read 30 minutes or listen to audio for 30 minutes. I don't mean the stuff that comes to you to your phone, clickbait. I mean something you consciously select to make yourself stronger physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Do that 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day. Don't miss a meal. Do your 30 minutes. You won't have any imposter syndrome.